Congress, and he is the founder and CEO of IPI Limited.
IPI Solution.
Yes, IPI Solution Group. And with us is Adamu Garba. And if you are on social media, just like you know Kampiaka says, so you know Adamu Garba. So I appreciate as he coming. Yes, IPI Limited is the founder of Crowley, our Nigerian Twitter.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Thank you very much, distinguished guest, Honorable Chairman, the author, and my friend and brother, Salihu Tonkwaya Kasei, and distinguished invited guests. I am very happy with the last speaker who made the comment from the family of the author, because he went back to the roots and said he wants to speak in the local language. Actually, that is something that I think all of us need to applaud, because whether we like it or not, one of the biggest problems we have today in Nigeria that affected our development has to do with the language of communication. We were forced to pick a language, of the colonial masters, and it is very difficult for us to understand how they understand it because of the root cause of the languages that actually originates in line of learning, teaching, communication, collaboration, and building our societies and social construct. And that's why we have a gap. So this is very interesting. In fact, it is even very good for us to at least make Hausa a lingua franca, especially the major languages, Yoruba and Igbo. So that if you can send an email with these languages, they should be able to become local languages, and they should be able to be acceptable as official modes of communication in everything we do. Be that as it may, let me switch into the topic. I never met the author. This is probably the first day I saw him. And on seeing the title of the book, The Black Nest, and some of the brief review I read on the book, I am seriously motivated to be here. I didn't hesitate to tell him that I will definitely, by the special grace of Allah, be available. And while on our way, we booked Matra, from Abuja airport down here, and suddenly there was cancellation and the shifting to 1 p.m. and we could miss it. So our team quickly made rapid arrangement, and we got Bayero to come because we really have to come, simply because of the value of the information that is contained in The Black Nest. Why I love the book is because it was able to bring about the core of the problems that we have about young people participating in the real political affairs outside the institution. The issues of unionism, and the issue of unionist himself, unionism, and the active political participation that may lead to young leadership in Nigeria. There's a huge gap, because if you trace the actual foundation of unionism in Africa, when the colonial masters was very tough, they now created a plan after First World War to organize our societies in preparation for us to continue to sustain our economies, albeit extractively. You extract from here, you take there. So after the First World War, there were a lot of devastation. Sustaining colonial administration was becoming very expensive. So the best way out is to see how they can build African future in their own picture. And that is why West African Student Union was first founded in 1925. It was founded in England with all the students that are studying in London. Then they came together and they formed West African Student Union. And that's how unionism started. But of course, after that period, there was a slack, because there is this Great Depression in the world, and by 1929, the global system was becoming shaky. So paying more attention to that line is not too much of importance, simply because there was so much agitation for liberation, from about women riots to different women riots that happened in Nigeria, from the Nigerian Youth Movement, part of the offshoot of the West African Student Union. I think one of the major actors of West African Student Union, Mr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, was actually the founding member of Nigerian Youth Movement, NYM. That was in those areas where we were struggling for independence. So suddenly we now had Second World War that devastated the entire global economy. And there was a huge issue from our colonial masters. The European leaders that predominantly control Africa decided to pull out. And then, after that Cold War, 1945, Global Multilateral Institution was founded and we jumped into the Cold War. And that's where our unionism gets its own credence from. When the West and their allies are moving towards the right, the East and their allies under the leadership of the USSR or Russia, current Russia, has moved towards the left. And there is serious control on the narrative of political affairs of the people of these regions. But as at that time, because our colonial masters were the rightists in the game, that means the French and the English, they were able to control the leadership structure in their own picture, where religion, elitism, industrialization, and co was the major driver of African newly formed states. But then, the leftists have locked out in this control, so the only way they can do is to look into the labor movements. That is why they started funding labor movements. The whole issue was to confront the established state in some form of a protest, to be able to push certain agenda in the interest of the masters that are supporting that pushovers. And then suddenly, over a period of time, they discovered that it is very important for them to cascade into institutions. And that is how they got into universities. And from Nigerian Student Union to Nigerian Student Union governments. Then we now have what is called SUG, a parallel government from the outside government that is formed inside school institution, sometimes, and in most cases, confrontationally against the institution where they operate. And also, where required, there will be rallies against the state. And this is why we began to have this kind of games. And at a certain point in time, we reach a point where the student union government become an important asset from our liberation on the military rules. We used to have military leaders in Nigeria, we all know about that. And suddenly, student union government became an important asset after the Cold War in 1990. Became an important asset in collaboration with labor unions to be able to push for liberation of Africans from, especially Nigeria, from the military rule to the present administration that we have, which is called democracy. So after the coming of democracy, what became of a student union? A very big question is what is hanging, and that's what connects this topic to my little understanding about the whole procedure. After coming of this dispensation, the student union institutions become somewhat a political asset that politicians used to leverage to be able to advance a political agenda. From the outside, I'm talking about NIMES. So when you come from inside the institutions, student union government are formed principally to protest against the school, continuing the commandeer institution that we inherited from the Cold War. So that is how it becomes somewhat like a rebellious movement inside an institution. I am personally a student unionist. I participated as an activist. There was a time I protested, in a school where I was, Kano University of Science and Technology. That's how I was rusticated from the university, because I participated in unionism. But again, there is a gap between student activism and active political participation. But that blackness that is making this gap not to be discovered was the fact that once you become a student union president or a student union leader, you automatically assume certain quasi-power and authority to believe you know all, you are a leader, you can do. Meanwhile, to the best of my knowledge, that is fictional leadership. The actual leadership have to do with actual conviction in leading society by law, by governance, by principle. Although student unionism help us in building our own capacities in terms of participation, in terms of political relationship, and also building network. But again, we should be able to understand that student unionism is different from real active politics. Because when I went out and then joined active politics, I was able to see a lot of differences from what I ever believed about political participation. And that is why you see some of the most successful non-presidents that we have in Nigeria and successful student unions, when they go back to the active politics, they get dissipated into the system simply because there is a disconnection between the real political participation that happen in our schools and the actual political participation that happen outside our school. That means it is very important for student unionism to continue to operate under the guidance of the institution within which it operates. And it should be an institution of learning how to lead, not executive leadership. Because there could be so much accident when you try to execute leadership and you build this euphoria around you that you know that you are now a big guy, you are the president of the union, and if you get out there, instead of you to lay low and learn, you begin to behave that way and you become an activist. And there are two different things between a politician and activism. A politician wants to win an election. He wants to get political power. He wants to be able to create policies and rules and implement them. But an activist wants to push a narrative. So but in school, when you constantly struggle against the established institution, you are passing a narrative. That's what you are doing. So when you come into political participation, it's about winning. It's strategy. The issue of strategy and tactics now come to play, because strategy and tactics are two different things. And when you are doing active unionism or activism, you're actually a tactician. But for you to be able to win an election, you must be a master strategist. So the only way to participate actively in politics outside is to be a strategist, and therefore it is important for student unionism to be defined as institution of learning democratic leadership, as opposed to the institution that will raise against the established institution. And that is what I was able to capture from the brief information I got from Blacklist. What the order Bashir was able to do was to try to highlight these salient points. Because at some point, the order clearly stated that he even attempted to interview some of the NANS leaders. But either he cannot have access to them, or when he has access to them, he doesn't have the information. The truth of the matter is that they don't actually have the information. They just get in there and they become, how can I say, maybe they become also numb in the political circle. Because the actual politics outside is different from politics inside. So my advice to students is to constantly treat yourself as learners when you are in school. When you are running any office, supposing you are running as an SUG president, you are an executive or elected SUG president, the best friend you should have is the best leader that is in that institution. If he's a VC, please learn from him. If there is any teacher in any department or any rector or lecturer that you think you like his leadership qualities, please go and learn from him. When you want to do something, listen to what that particular leader advises you, because you are still a learner, you are still a student. Don't ever try to outgrow yourself with paraphernalia of office, moving in convoys of cars, making noise and shouting. You are only known for creating crisis in an environment. When there are political activities, they call you to come and scatter environment in the interest of politicians. And at the end of the day, they use you and dump you because you learn nothing. So that is why it is very, very significant for you to understand once you are in an institution of learning, you are there to learn. If God makes it possible for you to be SUG president or any of the SUG positions, still make it as an advancement of learning. Do not ever be a rebel in an institution that is shaping you for a better tomorrow. try to be a conforming citizen of that institution so that you can now actively build reputable, mature, responsible network that will advance your better tomorrow. Go and check those people that have participated actively in political activity and that have done it maturely, responsibly, with value. Those are the guys that are currently sitting in different political offices we have in the country. Once one of their friends become a governor, you see surrounding himself by them. Why? Because you understand their value, and your value is shaped by the environment you help to shape as a student. Because as a student, your first job is to learn, and your second and most important job is to improve on what you learn. That's the second and the most important part of going to school. So if you are participating in unionism or unionist activities, you should do so not as a rebellious confrontational actor, but as someone who is actively working to build a better institution than he met. That should be your principal responsibility. So we should try to disconnect ourselves from the effect of Cold War that affected our institutions. That today, as a politician, when I go and meet some people, you will see them trading NANS to me. Some of them will tell you, NANS, we can bring the NANS president, they can do this. We are planning a convention. And somebody was telling me yesterday, we are having a meeting up to 1 a.m. And one of the persons was saying, we can create NANS, we can call NANS to come and stampede in that environment. The first place they talked about is NANS. And on this issue strike, ASU strike issue that is all over the country, you saw what the supposed NANS president did to the Minister of Education, Adamu. People may like it, you know, the activists may like it, but to the best of my knowledge, that shows how uncultured and unprepared a NANS leader should be. You are in the front, you are in the presence of the Minister of Education. Instead of you to push for reform agenda and properly, responsibly and respectfully present your own case, you are shouting and you are doing solidarity forever. You can imagine this. Is that what took you there? So these are the problems that our students are trying to be packaged. And let me tell you the damage that this is causing. Majority of the joblessness we have outside economic or outside education system has to do with our own orientation about what we should expect outside our school gates. There is this entitlement mentality that is built on us when we are in school. It is your right. It is your privilege. You should grab this. You should earn this. Government should do this for you. The VC should do this. Student union, this one should be this. But we don't ask what is our responsibilities. What is your responsibility in making sure that that thing is done appropriately? We don't. And that is why you see a NANS president, to the best of my knowledge, I think that man should be 45 years old, talking to the Minister of Education by hitting the bench. He has right. He has right. But what is your responsibility? So when you get out of any school you find yourself, with your degree certificates or NYSC, looking for a job, with that entitlement mentality, entitlement is an imprisonment in your future. It imprisons you. It denies you the opportunity to start from nothing to something, from 0 to 1. But if you go globally, you will see most of the big people that we celebrate today start from nothing to something. Why? Because they lower their guards, they learn through the process. I always just give one example. I'm a science student. So because of that, I decided to accept my realities. When I founded my company in Lagos in 2008, there was a place where I was supposed to have a job, RT Briscoe Nigeria PLC. It's actually a listed company, so I can talk about it. So I was supposed to be given a 3 million naira job, but my age, then I was 26 years. So the board said, you are too young for you to have 6 million naira, 3 million naira. How are we going to handle that to you? How are we going to have over this job? Can you be able to do it after what we pay you? I said, I don't have capital to do this. I will still need your support, even if it is 50%. Nobody in that place can be able to accept that, except one man, Mr. Asha Akintayo. He stood up and said, no problem, as a financial controller of this company, I am guaranteeing on behalf of Adamu Garba that you should release the money he requested for to IPI Solutions so that he can continue and do this job. Should there be any problem, I will take responsibility. And I was very happy. And you know why? I did only, I think, some few things that get I and him attracted to each other. Whenever I come to see him in his office, there is this greeting that Yoruba people used to do. They call it Dubali. I drop all my whatever big man is. I will flat on his front. Thank you very much, Oga. You are this. Oh, no problem. You can go, my son. And that's what makes him to give me the opportunity that within that year, we did a business of 12 million naira with that organization. So Gilman K. the only thing that brings Gilman K in your life is sense of entitlement. It imprisons you. You believe you should have something you didn't work for. You believe you should have something created from somewhere to come and build you up. What is killing Nigeria today is sense of entitlement. The entire country is running on one thing that we don't produce, which is oil. And the economy is shutting down because we can't control that thing that we don't produce. Because we don't price it. Oil is an international commodity. And any international commodity have to be priced with dollar. And we don't produce dollar in Nigeria. We have to depend on the United States of America for us to continue to satisfy our insatiable level of consumption. And the only way we can attract dollars into our economy is when we sell the oil. And if they choose not to buy the oil, where are we going to get the dollars? Someone was telling me yesterday that this Zanabuka you see in my head is now being manufactured in China. That means we import Zanabuka using dollar. So we need dollar to import Zanabuka. In Kano, we used to have about 1,500 factories, majority of whom are textile companies. Today, 16 companies in Guangzhou, China are dedicated to make in Nigeria textile. We use dollar to import it. We still need oil that is coming from the ground. And this oil is the graveyard of our foreparents that we dig to extract. That's it. It's fossil fuel. So we are digging the graveyard of our foreparents to live. Imagine, how can a country survive this situation? So this sense of entitlement is what is killing us. And that is why when somebody is elected to be the governor, to be the president, member of House of Assembly, either Senate or member of Reps, down to councillor, everybody just going to grab his share. Because I don't know whether tomorrow is going to be available. So it becomes a grabbing domain. Everybody sit on the table to grab his own share. And that's the situation. It has now become even institutionalized. Every month, finance commissioners from each state will go to Abuja to collect share of their pie. It is now an institution that you are entitled for being a Nigerian to just go and get oil money that you didn't work for. Meanwhile, we have the best demography in the world that are good consumers. Just look at us. There is hardly any person here that is not wearing up to 6 things in his body. From your cap down to your shoe. Just count. All those things, why do you produce them? Why can't you produce them? What is happening? What is delaying you from actively rising up to try to think of doing something out of nothing? Entitlement. It starts from unionism. It starts from schools. It starts from the way we are nurtured. So you can only be nurtured well by your teachers when you present yourself in a very well-behaved, good manner. If you prove to be rebellious, your teachers cannot nurture you well. And it starts from home. When you are growing as a young child, if you are not well-behaved to your parents, you will not have their blessings. And if you don't get your blessings, you come to school, you become a rebel. And someone tell me that the first rebel on earth and the chairman of the constitution of the rebel standing committee Who can help me answer that person? That's it. It's Shaitan. Because he's the first guy that said no to authority. Do you want to be like him? So this is the way we should think. We should be able to believe that in an institution we are here to learn, to grow. Whatever position we find ourselves, from class reps down to SUG presidents, we are here to learn. We should not escape that. We should not escape the fact that if you're having some administrative responsibility or leadership responsibility, you identify people that are leaders to learn from them within the same institution. That is the only way that when you go out with these values, you can easily be able to become an acceptable political figure in the system. You can be the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria when you behave well as a SUG president. You can be the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria when you behave well as a student unionist. In that unionism, I don't mean exclusionary unionism the way we believe. There's something they call comrade. That's why I actively don't like that comrade in my name. Some people will write your name and say comrade, and Adamu Garba say, I have no comrade. I don't agree with it. Simply because a comrade is trying to show some group of people that disagree with other group of people for nothing other than ideology that in most cases don't exist. In fact, if you go back to this Eastern ideology, like the Cold War ideology then, the USSR are even godless. The state is the god. Like the way it is in China. What is Chinese religion? The state of China. That's Chinese religion. But these are the real comrades. So I'm not a comrade, I bet. I'm a comrade. So try as much as possible to identify why you do what you do. If you have problem with information, Google. I guarantee you that Wikipedia information is 90% accurate. Don't throw it out. But make sure that you understand your environment and make sure that you escape from the spirit of entitlement. And use unionism to include everyone, not unionism to exclude Mr. A or Group A against Group B. Identity or identity politics is the root cause of all the troubles we are facing today in the world. The current war in Russia and Ukraine, even though there are economic undertones on Nord Stream and the Dnieper River, but the core of it is identity of the Russian-speaking population. That's what Putin is using, Russian-speaking population against the Ukrainians. So he's there to protect my identity against your identity. So that identitarianism is what is causing major conflicts that we have today in the world. So when you are doing unionism and you happen to be in the department of chemistry, for instance, and you have an association for chemistry students of Bayero University, Kano, you should see yourself as a larger member of Bayero University, Kano, first and foremost, than only we group of chemistry students. We don't like even biochemists. They don't know what they are doing. These mathematicians are mad. These guys that are doing medicine, they don't sleep. We don't like to be like them. I don't like lawyers. They're always, you should try as much as possible when you are in the school, you create a network of ecosystem of people as one entity. Strong, responsible, organized, valuable people that will shape the future to work in the interest of your children and great-grandchildren that the world is expecting you to do. Nigeria is expecting you to do, and your parents are spending so much to make sure that you do it, and your teachers are having sleepless nights to learn how to teach you to go to do it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Adamu, for this wonderful speech, which happened to be the keynote. And we really appreciate you being in our midst today. And I believe Adamu Garba has done a lot of justice to the topic and to the book itself. So, moving next in the agenda, I would like to call the author of this book, because I believe most of the people sitting here, haven't met Bashir before, but today Bashir is going to stand before you